First of all, I want to do a reminder of some basics. I'm using the image there, by the way, of a potter. I think knowledge management and technology in general, and my whole background is in technology. I've built 3 software products over my lifespan. I've built decision support systems. And I came from that environment before I even got into KM. So this is addressing everybody in a sense. And I do a lot of work now with the Agile community. We need to see all of ourselves as craft in terms of the way we work. And a craftsperson has what's called, Aristotle called pronesis, practical wisdom, knowledge of the fingertips. They've learnt their trade by going through an apprenticeship over time. They know how to do things without thinking about it. But they also have theoretical knowledge. They know about the makeup of the clay. And that's what Aristotle called Sophia. Yeah, you need theoretical knowledge and practical wisdom, and the two need to go together. You can't have one without the other. And that's something I'm going to advocate as we go through this. So many years ago, in a presentation in Basel, I got really angry with one of the big consultants claiming that they can make all tacit knowledge explicit. Well, you've got to remember, this is in the 90s. People genuinely thought that. And Anarka's Secchi model assumed that you could do it. I mean, he hadn't read Polanyi, because Polanyi says that no explicit knowledge can exist without a significant tacit component. Yeah, human beings need to know things in that sort of way. So either way, I devised 3 rules, and they've stood the test of time. There's 7 in all, but I'm just going to do the 3 main ones. The first one is knowledge can only ever be volunteered. It cannot be conscripted. You can't make people share their knowledge, because you'll never know whether they're doing it or not. You can make them share information, but whether they use their knowledge or share their knowledge is another matter altogether. Fear of abuse is a far more significant factor in knowledge retention than the idea that knowledge is power. Most people with real knowledge will share it freely, provided they can have some influence on its use. Yeah, the people who try and hold on to things and won't share it generally don't have anything in the first place, in my experience. Yeah, but the reality is what you don't want is somebody to abuse it, because then you'll get the blame, right, in terms of the way it works. We learnt that the hard way in IBM. We had a private area where we developed our work on narrative, and we shared all our failures, because the people in that group were people we knew and trusted. And then somebody in IBM found it and said, oh, you can't have this, you've got to make it formal. So we spent the whole weekend stripping stuff out of it, all the failures, and making it available for IBM. And then we created a new web database for IBM. And we took our private area outside of IBM, because we wanted to carry on sharing failure with people we really trusted. And we knew that if we put it in IBM's knowledge management system, people would take it and use it without training and supervision. And if it worked, they would claim the credit. And if it failed, they would give us the blame. Now, you're going to find me get very cynical as I go through this, because the cynics are the people in the company who care and they tell the truth. Right? That's the reality you need to recognize in terms of the way it works. The second one is we only know what we know when we need to know it. Human knowledge is deeply contextual. I used as a game in IBM to put executives in a room with a pad and paper and say, please write down everything you know. It was quite entertaining, really, right? They'd freeze after about 5 to 10 minutes. The reality is you can never write down everything you know. And just to give you the facts on this, the amount of your knowledge which can actually be written down anyway is less than about 5 or 6%. And the huge dependency of AI and machine learning and technology on written text is deeply problematic, because the amount we can write down is actually quite limited. And that leads us into starting to think about apprentice models. We know, for example, with London taxi drivers, I mean, we have this quaint concept in the UK that we should train taxi drivers. It's a unique feature of London. The way they're trained is they drive around the streets of London for 2.5 years minimum with a map of London strapped to the handlebars of a motor scooter until they know the name of every street. And London's a big city. And the exam is to be given any 2 points in London, and you have to actually describe the route from memory, turn by turn, with every major landmark out and back. It has a 40% pass rate over multiple efforts, and the hippocampus of a London taxi driver is significantly larger than other human beings. There's a whole body of human knowledge which requires physical change for you to be able to use it. And that was one of the first things that we found in that, is the whole concept of embodied knowledge, which is of increasing importance. So basically, there's things that I can do, I know, but I can't even articulate them. Then there are the things that I can articulate, narrative, storytelling. I'm going to spend a bit of time on that in a minute. I come from an oral tradition in Wales. One of the things which went wrong in Europe is we wrote the fairy stories down. So now we look back and they're quaint. Whereas actually they were designed for the oral tradition and they would develop and change to manage the current context of society. And actually one of the things I'm going to argue in a minute is one of the roles of knowledge management is to resurrect the oral tradition in a scalable way, because there are things that we can hold in story form that can never be codified anyway. Yeah, look at all religious textbooks teach through stories. They don't give you explicit goals and structured processes, they tell you stories. In fact, some people use the phrase homo narrans, with the storytelling apes. Narrative is a key part of the way we work. So hold that one. What we can write down is a limited aspect of what we know.